for lack of better words, some people try to test my gangster, to just be real.
Tell me more about when you said I was dying and being born at the same time.
So, as I mentioned, I do have lots of childhood trauma that, I've been continuously working through. I really feel like I'm really not going to work through all of this until I'm called home and I transition to the next life. I really feel that way. When my son was born, and it was, extremely traumatic when I almost died, I realized that so many fears and things that I was holding on to, I was actually like really attracting that energy to myself. For example, I've never really shared this like publicly, but I feel like this is the space to do it. So my father-in-law, may he rest in peace, he passed away before we even were pregnant with Jacob. And he died from complications of a stroke 10 months after he had the stroke. When he had it, it was so bad that he was paralyzed on one side, but he was able to speak completely. His speech was not affected.
Okay.
Matter of fact, when he had it, my husband and I pulled over on the side of the road. My husband was very distraught, and he was literally, we're praying to God that he would be able to talk to his dad again. And then lo and behold, his speech was not affected at all.
Wow.
So that was, crazy right there in itself. But I always had a lot of love for him, and it was really upsetting that once my husband and I were having kids that we created together, he wasn't going to be physically a part of that experience. But I always had this fear of like strokes and things like that in the back of my head after he experienced that. So when I was pregnant with Jacob, I had really high blood pressure, which obviously if you have high blood pressure, you're at a higher chance of a heart attack or stroke. So I felt like I sat with that for a long time, and I did miscarry twice before I had Jacob. And I was beating myself up a lot about losing those babies.
Yeah.
So I felt like I internalized a lot of that, and it came back to, as a child, me internalizing everything being my fault, being the traviesa, being blamed for everything, putting so much shame and guilt on myself. So when I had Jacob and I almost died, I felt like I really had to let those parts of me go. Like they were not benefiting me. There was no positive things coming out of it. It was all toxic, and it was all negative, and it was created in an environment that wasn't created out of love.
Right.
It was created out of perpetual fear and anxiety. Recently, my sister and I were talking about my dad, and she said to my comadre, like, our dad's always had terrible anxiety. And it's crazy because I'm almost 35 years old, and when she said it, I was like, holy crap, he does have terrible anxiety. It was like the weirdest aha moment because I lived with it. I have it in my bloodline. Like I know I have it, but it was crazy to hear it out loud and be like, yeah, this is what I've been trying to get rid of. And it's not anxiety in itself, because that's fight or flight is normal for us, right? We have it in our DNA to protect us.
Yeah.
But when you're constantly living in fight or flight, that's not it.
No, not at all.
It ain't it. It's not it. And what I really didn't want more than anything were my kids, all of my kids, to have to feel they had to live like that.
Yeah.
That's what it was for me. And like those parts of being in that space, living in that space, operating out of fear, operating out of unrealistic anxiety that was put on me like rocks, I had to let them go.
Yeah.
I had to put them down.
Yeah.
And I had to let that die.
Yeah.
I had to. And in letting that die, I made space for myself to grow, for me to be able to find joy, even knowing that the fear was always going to be in the back of my mind, having waves of anxiety and just riding them out.
Yeah.
Learning to ride the wave.
Yeah.
Whatever life was giving me, I think that's the part that was born once I let go of those crippling, debilitating moments that were shutting me down and coming from a space that wasn't love.
Right.
I think understanding and knowing that, if you're worried about your child because you love them, that's normal.
Yeah.
It's normal to feel that way. But when my parents and my family were projecting their fears and their anxieties and their stress onto me as a child and telling me I had to hold on to them, it was never mine to keep.
Right.
And I had to understand that. I really had to let that go. So it was really hard though, because we're creatures of habit and comfort. And even if it's not good, we can't help but hold on to it because it's what we know.
Yeah.
I realized as I was raising my older kids and my babies, I had to really reparent myself. I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
I'm still genuinely reparenting myself and trying to learn to be gentle with myself because God knows I'm not.
Yeah.
I perfect example, I'm the team mom for my son's baseball team. There's 2 little girls on the team, that one of the coach's daughters, and we had pictures. I didn't realize I was going to be in the team picture. Don't know why, because I was a team mom, but I didn't realize it. And I had no makeup on, but I knew that. Like, I rolled out of bed. And I was like, I don't know, how I feel about this. And his daughter, the youngest one, she's like, but you look so beautiful.
Oh.
And it just hit me so deep. I'm like, gosh, I can see that your parents are building you up to believe that.
Yeah.
You know, that's the same thing my daughter says. My son, for Mother's Day, one of his things he put, you're the most beautiful without any makeup. He's 7.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm teaching them, opposed to watching my mom constantly critique her. I used to think my mom was so beautiful when we were young. And she just tore herself up every chance she got.
Yeah.
And then I picked up those toxic habits within myself. And I consciously don't do it in front of my kids or my daughter, but I still myself struggle with, you know, looking in the mirror and not picking every single thing I don't like apart.
Yeah.
And even that comes with being able to say, you know what, I can't do that either.
Right.
Because that's not mine either.
No.
Right? I was always a beautiful child.
Yeah.
It was their toxic things that they put on me that made me feel I was inferior. It was never mine to hold.
Yeah.
So I have to remind myself and reinforce that to myself. You know, my husband, we laugh because there's the memes of the dog with the hair all, you know, thrown. And it's like, that's when your husband's hitting on you the most. And I showed him and he started laughing. He's like, but I do, when I see you after a long day, and I know the kids done ran you through it, that's actually when you're the most beautiful to me, because you still do it with grace. And to hear that is like, I want to hear that, and I value it, but I want to validate it within myself.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on that.
Yeah.
You know, and just knowing, I think that I'm always constantly growing is what allows those parts to continue to die and new things to keep coming.
Yeah. I think too that you know, it's okay to be a work in progress, and like it's not like you figure it out. I remember I was talking to someone, they were working through some issue, and then another person, I think it might have been inner child healing, and then she said, oh, I've already healed my inner child. And everybody else in the space was like, okay, because then you know that person's not.
Right. Thank you for confirming us where you're at around your journey.
Yeah, and then we were like, okay, and then everybody was like, all right, you just can't, you know, she's just not going to be vulnerable. She's not going to be there to heal, etc. But anyway, so when AMG Healing came around, when was the moment where you're like, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to do this, and you know, what happened there?
So shout out to Esoteric Essa, which is how we met. She started the master's class.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to take this and see how this pretty much goes. We definitely learned a lot in regards to how to structure things. But even when I launched, it was a soft launch because I still felt like I wasn't quite there. And then I'd say within 6 months after that, with just doing soft things that I was offering services, I had this moment where I hosted an event, a workshop, and I had a married couple, which was like, and they ended up being from Norwalk, which was super cool, and I didn't know, but I talked to both of them after, and they both got very vulnerable and real and raw in this workshop, and it was beautiful because I'm like, wow, these two people that are married, committed to each other, have a family, have children, they're doing the work together. You know, it's one thing for you to do the work on your own and your partner to do work separately, but when you come together, that's like unstoppable, really. You know, respectfully to the universe, of course, but you know, and they came up to me and were expressing to me how much they enjoyed it, how much they needed it, how much their inner child was able to heal. And I gave them like tools, right? Because I can't fix anybody. That's just not what we do. I'm here as a vessel to support and help and guide. That's what I am. So when they were telling me how much they felt better, relieved, lighter after it, and it was a reclaiming joy workshop, which has been a constant thing for me that I've been working on, is especially now as I'm writing through grief is a duality, right? So when I had this workshop, which was about 6 months after we finished the course, that was when I had the moment where I was like, man, this is what it's all about. You know I've done a lot of things that I don't charge for, a lot of services that I just end up doing, and I know so many folks are telling me that's counterproductive, and I get it, right? I got to respect my business and understand my value and my worth. I get that. But I also feel like there's moments where I feel it's right, and I take advantage of the moment that it's right, and I offer it in that space. And just having this positive feedback from them, that was it for me. Like that's when I was like, this is why I'm doing it. This is what it's all about. This is what is going to make me feel good. It wasn't that I had a sliding scale for the workshop because I wasn't sure how much to charge. It wasn't all the preparation of what I wanted it to be, because I had these notes, and then once we got started, I just let it go. Like I was like, I'm not even going to look at anything but the time to make sure I was, respecting everyone's time. And once that happened and it was so organic, that's when I was like, okay, this is it. This is how it can work and how it should work. And that was good and it felt good. And it's been something I've held on to every time I've done different things. All the positive feedback just reinforces and reminds you why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So what's next?
Next, for sure, as I mentioned to you that, I am riding the waves of grief. I did lose my grandmother in August of last year. She is and has been the mom we always needed and wanted. So losing her was detrimental to my mental, physical, and spiritual self. And again, understanding and acknowledging that there's going to be moments in life that come up that she physically won't be here. And embracing that part of my spirituality to know that she's still with me in spirit. I think taking that, the health issues my son was having and having to, again, let fears die, I had to really give it to God. I had to really, when they say like Jesus take the wheel and all that, I had to really give it to God because there just came a point where I was like, I can't do it anymore. It's too heavy, it's too much. I can't, I'm driving myself crazy. I need higher intervention to really take this over for me because I can't. And I think being willing to release and allow what's meant for you to find you, I think that has been what's allowed me to navigate now coming back because I finally feel ready. I was busy getting a master's degree, raising my kids. I got a senior in high school, going through things with Jacob, losing my grandma. I finally feel like I can breathe again. And I'm really big on being conscious of my energetical space before I engage with somebody else. Yeah. I cannot do work for someone or help them if I'm not good. Yeah. You'll never catch me doing that. Like I cannot because I feel that's spiritually, ethically incorrect. And past that, I don't think it's fair for me to offer something to someone when I'm not at my best because then I'm limiting their experience and mine as well. And I don't think that's right. So I feel now that all of this is starting to clear. And I say that humble universe, but as it's clearing, I feel like now's the perfect time for me to reemerge. Now's the time for, I think it's almost shocking to me that I experienced this loss like this and I'm still breathing. Yeah. I'm still here. Yeah. I there was a time where I told my husband, I know I'm not gonna die, but I feel like I'm dying. Yeah. And losing her. Yeah. I said it quite a few times. And I think letting go of that process too, because it wasn't healthy. Knowing that I can grieve and be sad and go through things, but of all, she would want me to be happy. And I know that. Yeah. And I think I'm shortchanging her if I don't honor that. I told her when I started my business, I had a conversation with her right after I had that workshop. I talked to her and I told her what I was doing, and she was like, good, because that's all, her positive reinforcement, very good all the time. And I told her, no, Granny, this is for you too. Yeah. Because you are so much more than the limitations this life provided for you. You're more than the caretaker. You're more than the worker. You're more than the daughter. You had goals and dreams of things you wanted to do too, but life didn't allot it. And for myself and for you, I got to make sure that I finish all the things that I'm supposed to in this lifetime for the both of us. And she cried and I cried and we shared that moment, and that was before she got sick. So I was really happy to have that conversation with her. And now that I'm starting to, clear up the clouds a little bit and the sun's coming in more than it was before, and I'm allowing it, now is the time for me to step back in. And I feel better in offering, like I did do some death doula services unintentionally and learned a little bit more about that. I got more experience with astral charting. I've been working more on that, and the limpias, because they keep coming back to me. Folks keep inquiring to me about it, which is my way of, okay, this is what God's trying to guide me to do. Yeah. So taking the signs and just feeling like I have one, like confianza, to come back and give those parts of myself in a good space. Yeah. Now feels like the time. Yeah. And wrapping up school, because as we, grad school is a lot.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I feel good about it. Yeah. I've had so many opportunities already be mentioned to me, and I haven't even graduated just yet. It's happening this weekend. But it's crazy how one lunch can turn into these conversations. And I think it's really beautiful that I always try to operate out of a space of doing the right thing. Not because I'm perfect, I'm this good. It's not that. I really just feel like karmically and energetically, what you put out, you get back. Yeah. And there's been quite a few moments lately where for lack of better words, some people try to test my gangster, to just be real. And I took the high road. High road because I said, if you would have done this a couple years ago, it wouldn't have went down like that. However, I'm growing and I'm evolving, and you know what? Being that is not me, right? And then also, it was a test from the universe, like, have you leveled up, or are you going to go back to that silly stuff, right? It was like a check for me too. And the check was good. And I was like, you know, and I feel like those moments, even though I sat with them, I was shaking. I was so angry a couple of moments. I said, you know what is this teaching me? And even that, taking the killing and dying, the part of me that feels the victim, that feels that, you know, why are they doing this to me? And, you know, that inner teen, right, that doesn't understand the conflict. Being in a space to be like, you know what is this teaching me?
Right.
How am I going to learn and grow from this?
Yeah.
How am I going to make sure if my kids encounter this, how can I guide them? You know, what does that look like for me? So being in this space now, I feel like is really the best time for me to step back in and just plunge. No putting my toe in the water and testing it, just diving right in. I feel good about it, and I feel like this is the right time. Even the full moon yesterday, this weekend, I was kind of like feeling a little tired, feeling a little, you know, but I slept good last night. And I went to sleep last night just praying, like, you know what, God, whatever is meant for me is going to find a way. And I got to just let it happen. You know, I've given it to you before. Here, help me because I can't take the stress. Well, you know what? Here, help me. Abre los caminos because I'm here. I'm ready. And I really feel like I'm going to be blessed with that humbly because I'm open to receive it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we block our own blessings, and that's real. And being able to be real with myself and be like, you know what? I am worthy of receiving opportunities and benefits that allow me to help others.
Yeah.
And be successful in it. I'm good with that. You
Yeah.
know, and it took me a long time to feel worthy.
Yeah.
You know, it took me a long time from the childhood trauma, the abuse. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse as a child, all of that. It's very challenging on your mental and emotional and physical and spiritual state to be able to feel of value and worthy. And to be in a spot now where, you know what, I have earned my master's degree. That's right. I did knock out this 45-page hybrid thesis with the film I created. Yeah, I did do that, you know, and standing on it and feeling good about it and not doing it arrogantly, respectfully and humbly and being grateful to have the opportunity. And then, okay, I've been able to accomplish this and I've been able to get here. How do I help others get there too?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't stop with me.
You know, I love that you said, how do I help others get there too? Because I see one of the things that I loved, again, shout out to Esoteric Essa, was the collaboration over competition. Like our cohort seemed to want to help.
Yes.
I mean, I am, you know, from the East Coast, but, you know, I'm visiting California. The driving's intense here, but I was like, oh my God.
No, yeah, that's true.
So I was like,
You feel like you're in Tijuana, I guess, if you come from over there.
I guess so. It felt like we have Charlotte. I'll tell you about Charlotte another time. But it was a collaboration and like the helping, because so many times I see folks just like, they will not help that person only because they're Hispanic, Latinx, Mexican American. They're like, no, I had to suffer and so should you. And that is the worst to me. You know, it is absolutely the worst to me, because how are our people going to come out of just surviving, into thriving?
Yes.
And then like that power recognition, you know?
Yes. We want to do more than survive.
Yeah.
And I think you hit it right on the nose, because even in grad school, so I'm a Chicano studies is my degree, my master's of arts. And in that department, I was super stoked to come into it. I'm with brown folk, like-minded folk that, you know, want to do the things I'm doing. And it was super dog-eat-dog.
Wow.
And it got really nasty. And luckily, my mentor, shout out to Dr. Cupchoy, she's been amazing. And really just helping me navigate through that, because it was disheartening to come into that space and it be your own people. You know, and you're right. Our cohort, I talk to everybody still.
Yeah.
So, I mean, fortunately, a couple of them live close to me, and we've gotten closer. But Dorian's my Norwalk neighbor. Shout out to Dorian, Blue Dream Bruja. You know, and Alondo's just up the street, and so is Ariel. So, I mean, I'm fortunate to have that community, and I love it. I love that I have that. But I will say that that's a direct issue there. You know, I really struggled with that, and feeling like I had all these hopes and expectations, and then kind of getting shattered with the toxic mind frame of, you know, everybody has to struggle.
Yeah.
Everybody has to earn it. You know, that kind of toxic negativity, when actually, when you go back to our roots, talk about this in my thesis because it's about supporting neurodivergent brown families.
Okay.
So in that, I talk about reclaiming the village. And historically, we were supporting each other, taking care of each other, taking care of each other's kids, looking out for one another. It wasn't the way it's been turned through colonization. That mind frame of fighting each other isn't rooted from us. That's not our roots. That was put on us and taught to us and reinforced to us through all of these colonial ways. This is not even who we are at our heart.
Wow.
But yet somehow that's the narrative that gets perpetuated constantly. It's really not. When you think about it, it's not. That is a colonial mind frame to be against each other. You know, the patriarchy, all of that. That's not who we are at our core. That's not what our ancestors were.
Wow. I'm gonna have to Zoom interview you just so you could do your thesis for the viewers. Okay.
I don't mind. Yeah, I trust me. I've worked on it so much that I'm very passionate about it, and I've been fortunate to take my work up north to Humboldt to present at different workshops.
So, what services are you going to offer for folks? So, if I'm a parent, right, and I'm like, I need help now, what can I get from your services?
So to start right off the bat, I would offer like a plática because it's a heart-to-heart conversation and really just kind of seeing, and you can't get this in one conversation, but just having kind of like a consultation to see what it's really all about. Is it that you want to just do, like, you need a cleanse, you need candle work, do you need individual mentoring and support? Because I offer that as well. Kind of gauging where you're at. So I have had parents come to me that they've realized their child is like a preteen and they're getting triggered by their child for one reason or another. And then as we talk, it's actually because it's triggering things that they went through as a child. And their parent is the unhealthy response their parent gave them. They're struggling in between, how do I support my child, but how do I not feel bad for myself? Because there is a deficit that's always going to be there.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. There was times with, which, you know, I've been, and I proudly proclaim, only not to like trauma dump, but to let people know it's okay and there's life after. But I've been no contact with my mother for like 20 years almost. Just like, you know what? And that was before, I like to say I'm like an OG cycle breaker. So I started going to therapy in college because even the fact that I went away for college, that was crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and I really struggled because I was really far away from home. So I went to therapy and then eventually made that decision. And there was times where, so my little one is 9 now, but you know, when she was like 2 and 3, she would do something and it would like trigger something in my brain and it would make me like dizzy. And I liken it to like, you're like living through the memory and then you're actively trying to parent a gentler way. So I remember I would like literally, because you're supposed to like speak to your child at their level anyway, I would like literally like kneel and like put my hands on the floor and then just like let it pass. And then it'll be like, do you want to make a different choice? Do you think that will hurt or do you think it will not hurt? You know, but like in that moment, I'm like swimming in like, you know, like the river Styx, if you will. I'm just like, what is happening? And then luckily, you know, we're getting through it. But that triggering, that like reliving the memory and then choosing a different way despite that, that is so hard.
It is. I mean, my sister and I talk about it all the time. It's really difficult, is the easiest way to say it, but it's so difficult to give your kids something you never had.
Yeah.
And you're never gonna have.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're grasping at straws.
Yeah.
And being really aware and conscious of the way you get triggered. It's hard. It's hard as hell. Like, it's just, there's some moments where it's just, I don't even know what to do. You know, there's some moments, especially raising neurodivergent children, sometimes I just like, I don't even know what to do. Like, I just gotta like, let me just walk away for a minute because I'm not sure how to, you know, and then just really checking myself. Like, or if I have raised my voice or yelled, apologizing, you know what, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. You know, even taking accountability. I mean, I'm gonna be 35 years old this month.
You're going to be 30 fine. 30 fine.
30 fine. Hey, I like that. 30 fine on the 25th of this month.
Okay.
And I can't remember my mom actually ever saying sorry.
Wow.
Or my dad.
And that's another thing. Like, they may never.
Oh, I know.
You know?
I tell my oldest son, my kids as they grow up, but I've told my oldest son quite a few times, we have to learn to live knowing that there's going to be apologies that we deserve that we never get.
Yeah.
You just got to know that. And being able to know that despite what they do or don't do, you're still worthy of that.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing to sit with is like, I haven't spoken to my parents now for almost a year. It got tricky when my grandma got sick because she was living with them. So I kind of had no choice but to be in the space of them. Yeah. Super toxic, super terrible. 0 out of 10 would have recommended to a friend. It was awful. It made her transition significantly more challenging for my sister and I. It was terrible. I can't even get into everything, girl, because we ain't got the time.
It's cool.
It was terrible. But I say all that to say that, you know, once I lost my grandma, it actually, believe it or not, made it easier to tolerate them. Because there's nothing worse than mourning the living.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
I know exactly what you mean.
And you've experienced this for so long now, so you're like an OG in that form too, because you've done it longer than me. But I'm actually past the moments. There were times still in the past couple of years I'd be like, man, I wish my mom could be X, Y, or Z. I wish I could talk. I don't even feel like that anymore.
So here locally in California, can you offer in-person workshops?
Yes.
And what about for folks like in North Carolina?
I do Zoom.
That are just looking for cultura.
Yeah, I do Zoom services. I've done a couple. Some folks, even though they're local, for some people, it's just a little bit more challenging to be vulnerable in a space with someone like that. I kind of go at everybody's pace, but I do Zoom services. Pláticas can always be on a Zoom call, a phone call, that's easy. As far as even doing cleanses, I do Reiki, so that's long distance. You can do that as well. Candle work, I can do at my altar for them. It doesn't have to be them doing the candle, which a lot of people prefer that I do them because I burn them and then I read them. So it's better for them. They're like, I don't know what it's going to tell me. Then I have to send you pictures. So that works out better too. But those are the best that I can do. I am now creating baños as well. Okay. So I can ship them, just figuring out their location and how's the best way to get it to them in the fastest, most efficient way. So those are services that I can offer in that regard, which I still feel good about because I think you're still able to encompass what you need from it. And again, like I mentioned before, like all the services that I offer, it's really, I try to cater to the person's individual needs. I have generalized services, obviously, of like the candle work, the pláticas, one-on-one mentoring. I'm doing Reiki, doing long distance cleansing. I have all of that and the workshops. I do have folks tend to gravitate towards workshops in person. Something about healing in a group. Yeah. There's something about it. And I don't think the universe makes mistakes. I think you end up with the people you're supposed to end up with. Just based off of what I've done prior, it seems like there's a unspoken theme once I start connecting with everyone individually and then as a group, it ends up being something that everybody is struggling with in one way or another. And I think that's beautiful. I think collective healing is absolutely beautiful. But then we also, have to be very mindful of the energetic exchanges as well. So when I do my in-person workshops, I'm very big on that because I never want to pass anything to anybody. So we cord cut.
Oh my gosh, that brings me to like a PSA. One time I did a more famous influencer, like a group Reiki. And I kind of thought of it more of as like, I wanted to help the collective or whatever, right? But in donating that money, I opened myself up to it. And you know how there's that saying, like, the van a jalar las patas, like they're going to play, like that's literally what I felt. And then I had to go get like basically like a despojo.
Yeah.
And so you got to be careful in what spaces you are. Because this was like online. I was like, yeah, sure, you can have my $10. And then.
Yeah, it's tough.
I ended up. Like, I woke up, I was like, huh.
You got to be careful. And also, too, I tell everybody that, ask me basic stuff because when people are, like, kind of unsure if they want to do a limpiar, like, where they're at, I'm always like, call back your power every night. Yeah. Simple. Call it back. Call it back. You can be in the shower. You don't have to. Yes, of course, we use agua florida and all these different things. Of course we do. But even in the shower, you can literally just, I remove it, I release it, take a little salt and scrub it on your body, You can do it. It's everybody has the ability and the tools within themselves. I just happen to help people tap into it. That's what it is. I'm not here to fix or save everybody because I'm still trying to fix my damn self, right? But I'm a work in progress. But I am here to help you find and guide to your alchemy and your tools. That's all this is. I give you tools to crack it open and really connect with yourself. I love that there's people that will come back to me for cleanses and limpias, but once we've done some practicas, they're in a better, different space. And I love getting that feedback after too, seeing how they're progressing. Like, I'm always here, you know, whenever you want to come back, you feel you need it, you feel you don't, I'm obviously going to be here as a resource, but it's most importantly, like, how can I help you help yourself? That's what I want for people more than anything, is to help them grow in their spirituality and within themselves, and for the people that they love. Because I have had some clients too that are not mothers, but have deep mother wounds, which is, I just tend to get them. I think it's just somehow we're connected, you know, energetically, because I think their energy can fill mine, even though they don't know it, even though they're not conscious sometimes. That's how they vibe with me, because, you know, it's like our inner children are connecting somehow before we are. And in doing so, you know, I see it. And I think validating people too, like just having a moment where I'm having a practica with someone and then she's telling me, I never want to have kids. I never want to be my mom. I was like, ouch, baby, because I felt the same way at one point. And being able to tell her, like, but you're not. The fact that you're sitting here having this conversation with me lets me know how far away you've already moved from that. Yeah. And it's not because I want you to have kids. Everybody's body's their decisions. But don't let her and her toxicity hinder you from something that could be amazing for yourself. Maybe you're just not ready, and that's okay. But you don't have to shut it out completely because of somebody else's shortcomings. It's not fair to you. Yeah. You know, and she was like, wow, I never thought about it like that. You know, and even just sharing space with people, being able to say out loud things that hurt you and feel safe. Yeah. You know, being in a safe space and knowing that I am really big on energetic cleansing and having your space clean and clear in myself. Just even that, even on a Zoom, like I have Palo Santo burning, or, you know, I light incense, I have candles on, like just even for myself, for them, I really am good about having that moral, ethic, hygiene for spiritual hygiene, because it's really important. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm stepping back into now. I really want to do some workshops soon because I miss being in person connecting with people. I really do. But I had to kind of be the hermit for a little bit before I was ready.
So you have to go into the cave of darkness.
Yes.
You come out the other side. It is scary, but there is beauty in the surrender.
It's true. There really is. And I think just allowing myself to, even the emotions, you know, Mother's Day just passed, and it was, to say it was challenging is like understatement. But I just let myself feel how I needed to. It's okay if my kids see me cry. You know, it's okay if it teaches them empathy. It's okay if I cry. I don't have to stop crying because my dad shoved that down my throat, that it was a sign of weakness. Actually, the strongest people cry. Yeah. It actually takes a great level of strength to show tears, because that means you're so moved. The tears are the words we can't say. And you're so moved by it that you let it go. Yeah,
and also better out than in, because, you know, it also releases your endorphins? Mm-hmm. I can't remember, but it cleanses you in real time.
Yeah. From physiologically, you are actually better from it. Yeah. So, and not just spiritually. Thank you everyone for checking in with me and hearing about me and my services. Come summer solstice, we will be kicking off again. Let the sun come in and let the healing flow. And if y'all want to reach out to me, AMG Healing on IG. That's the best way to connect with me. And also my website, www.amghealing.com. Connect with your girl. I'm here to help and here to do whatever I can to facilitate you on your healing journey, as I'm still going through mine.